Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Jay with United Tax Liens. I'm excited to bring this coach to you here today in an effort to make sure that you're familiar with all the different coaches that many of you will be working with moving forward. And obviously, to build more content to help put you on the path of financial freedom, we're bringing these in a series to you over some periods of time and giving you different aspects and different ways to invest and really try to overcome a lot of the misconceptions that are out there about tax sales in general. Today, I have one of my favorite coaches, probably one of the most experienced and probably has some of the most biggest success stories with the clients that we've been working with, and that's Miss Erin Bates. So Erin, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me, Jay.
Glad to have you. Can you tell everybody, for those that haven't had a chance to work with you, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your history in real estate and your history in coaching?
Absolutely. A little background on myself. I was a sports broadcaster for 18 years. I covered all motorsports, mainly motorcycle racing, but all of my offices were football and baseball stadiums around the country. So as glamorous as it sounded, I was on the road 44 weekends a year for 18 years straight. So not conducive to do with much with life. I had an athlete that badgered me each and every weekend at a track walk about this amazing new investment that I had to get involved with. So of course, we've all had a friend that's done that. Yeah, get out of my hair. Sure enough, I broke down and I did. I bought some certificates over a decade ago, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was very green with the process. And here I am today, over a decade later. So I've acquired many properties as I've gone through this process. But to give you a little background on myself, if I can get into this and be successful, so can any of you guys out there. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's funny, a lot of us are very similar in that sense. We kind of stumbled into it. Somebody told us about it, made the first investment, went, what is this? And then just kept going and building and building and building.
Right.
And I say the same thing. Hey, if I can do it, anybody can do it, right? So you're way more qualified than I am. You know way more about this, even though we've had both over a decade experience. Plus, you educate. What's great about all of our coaches that we've had so far is that you're all investors first. And then, of course, you create that education, pass it on, and put it into a format that's understandable for everybody. So with that said, I appreciate you being on once again. And let's talk a little bit about why we're here, obviously, the process of purchasing a tax lien. Something that I see is a big misunderstanding, and it's bad knowledge usually. What it is people will learn about how tax sales are done in one area, and then they think it's the only way to buy liens all across the nation. Can you tell everybody a little bit about the different ways that people can invest in liens and some of the things they're going to go through in that process, auction process?
Absolutely. So there are definitely some different avenues to invest. And with different states, some are lien states, some are deed states, some are the hybrid of the two. I'm a big advocate of investing in the state of Florida simply because it's an administrative state, not a judicial state. Okay, so the biggest difference is there is an administrative state means everything will be facilitated through the counties. That means we go in, we register for our bidder numbers through software, we facilitate the purchase through software, we even activate foreclosures through software and wait for the auction processes to arrive through online software as well. Okay, so it means that if you purchase in an administrative state, you don't ever have to hire an attorney to push forward with the foreclosure. Okay, so you're going to save yourselves thousands of dollars right out of the gate with those retainer fees, because those can be about minimum $2,500 per property. I've also seen them well up over $5,000 per property. Okay, so if you're investing in a judicial state, when you purchase a lien, then you're forced to hire the attorney for those retainer fees to push the foreclosure from start to finish. So usually higher expenses up front, and also the process for your investment to come to fruition can take a bit longer period of time. Okay, so administrative versus judicial state, that's the first thing that you're going to have to figure out. The second thing that you're going to have to figure out is where your funds actually lie. Okay, so are you going to get invested under a business or under your social security number, under your personal name? Okay, so in order for us to even go in and purchase a lien, the first thing that we're going to have to do, Jay, is we're going to have to register for a bidder number. Every county that we purchase a lien in, we have to register for a bidder number within that county. Okay, that's what they're going to reference us as. But in order to register, we either need an EIN number for a business name, or we need a social security number or an ITIN number. Okay, so those are the numbers that we're going to need to get a bidder number. So before you even get into this, make sure that you have that portion of it established. Okay, so purchasing the lien is very simple once you've gone in and got your bidder number, because now we can see all of the available liens. Okay, so the next step is, once we've done that, now we want to decide what kind of investor we are. Are we an aggressive actor investor? Do we want to acquire property, or are we more interested in just simply accruing the interest on the investment instead? Okay, so that's going to be a difference of being an idle investor opposed to activating what's called a tax deed application, or a TDA. When you do that, that's where you're going to be able to maximize your rate of return. Okay, so the objective here is not just to buy one lien and stay as an idle investor. You want to buy out all the liens that are owed against the property and become the primary lien holder. When we do this, that means that we're going to trigger a guaranteed 18% annual interest on your full amount that is invested. And you now have activated the foreclosure. So you're giving yourself a chance to acquire the property, and you're going to expedite the process, usually from start to finish, to about an average of a 6-month period of time. Okay, so when you go about it, this avenue of the purchase, it's a bare minimum guarantee of 18% annual interest is your worst case scenario. Your best case scenario is you do end up acquiring the property, right? But now, with that said, before you're ever going to make a purchase, you want to make sure that you're doing all of your due diligence first and foremost, well before you purchase a lien. Okay, so that's where the tricky part comes in. So hopefully to have a coach and advisor to walk you through that stuff, or at least to educate you on that, because the first thing you want to do is find out what your chances of acquisition on the property would be, right? If your chances of just accruing interest is going to be much greater, then you don't need to do all that much due diligence on the property, because the chances of acquisition is very slim. Right? But if your chances of acquiring the property is going to be great, you're going to want to do the further due diligence to make sure that the market value is where it is that it needs to be today, right? How many sales are currently happening in that area? What is actually sold for what dollar amount? The last thing that we want is to hold a property for a long period of time and not be able to unload it on the back end. Okay, so please make sure that you do have an exit strategy in place if you are pushing forward with foreclosures, because sometimes those stars are in a line and you end up acquiring those properties at a very inexpensive price.
That's great info. And real quickly, just adding to that, can you tell everybody about I know we focus a lot on Florida. It's very user friendly or buyer friendly for us, so it's a great place to point people to. Can you explain to them a little bit of difference about over the counter versus going through the bidding process if they were doing that? Just for example, just in Florida, right? I know there's pros and cons to both. Can you give everybody a little bit of information on that also?
Absolutely. So I think you're referencing a primary market lien versus a secondary market lien. Okay, yeah, and there is definitely a big misconception between the two. A secondary market lien basically is a lien that has already gone through a primary market bid down. Okay, so there's already going to be an established interest rate that's attached to that certificate. So when you purchase the lien, whatever that interest rate is what's going to start to accrue on the face value of the certificate. So it's going to be more of a minimal interest until you do activate the foreclosure, because every time you do so, you're going to trigger that maximum. Okay, so a secondary market lien is basically the liens that the company has brought in through an asset management company that you're buying through them. Okay, so how the purchase process itself works is basically you're going to receive 2 different emails. One would be a disclosure statement to sign. The second one would be the actual agreement from the asset management company. That's where you're going to make the purchase. They would then run the payment. They would then transfer the lien into your name or into your business name. Okay, whereas if we're speaking of a primary market lien, that's where the misconception lies, I feel, because primary markets, Jay, those can be your institutional investors, your real estate investors, your hedge fund investors, you know, the ones that come in with tens of millions at a time that we don't want to outbid against, those ones. Okay, so those investors, again, they hold those liens for a 2-year period of time. They'll turn around and cash out and sell them to the secondary markets. But that's a primary market where the misconception lies are what we call over-the-counter certificates. Okay, so those are county held certificates, and those ones did not get picked up through the bid down process. Okay, so sometimes I feel that there may be a negative connotation around those particular liens. However, those are my favorite liens because as long as you have done your due diligence, those are the gems that you're going to be able to go in and find. The purchase process, however, is very, very simple because like I said, everything is done at your fingertips. So if you're a person like myself, you don't like to do a lot of email exchange for bidder numbers, purchasing, etc. That's a great efficient way to keep your investment always consistently at its maximum.
So to come back to everything that you said, great information. Everything really comes down to due diligence, right? Making sure you're putting yourself in place, making sure you have the right budgets, especially if your goal is to acquire a property or to go through that TDA process to have that additional fund set aside. What's also great is working with a coach like you is that you could put somebody in a position where they understand the things that are almost illegible when it comes to county records, right? Put it in a very simple way where you could actually get somebody in their first investment within a few minutes, right? I'm sure you've probably done that before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that boils down to what we call a horizon lien to value, okay, or the HLTV ratio, because if we're looking at the amount of lien divided by the assessed value, as a tax lien investor, statistically speaking, we want for that ratio to show 70% or under. Okay, so if it shows 70% or under, the reality of it is not too much due diligence is going to be involved because the chances of acquiring the property isn't good. It's very unlikely. Yeah. Okay, but the lower that number starts to show, Jay, the lower chance of acquisition you have on the property, and most likely you're going to get redeemed with interest instead, right? So if we see that your chances are so unlikely, because remember what's got to happen first and foremost for you to acquire the property, even when you activate the tax deed application, okay, you are now a primary lien holder, but remember the property owner has the right to pay off. So the county will give them 30 to 60 days to get you paid up. Okay, if they paid up, that would mean it was a pretty quick redemption. You're going to get everything you put into the investment plus the interest that accrued to that date. Okay, but if the property owner doesn't pay off, this is where the county now reaches out to you and they inform you of what day the property is scheduled to go to that auction. And as I said, on average, you're looking at 6 months. Okay, so we either sit back and we wait for that auction day to arrive, and on the day of that auction, remember that's the outcome of the investment, because you're either going to accrue the interest and get redeemed that way, or you will end up acquiring the deed to the property for everything that you're into the investment for. Okay, and that's because Florida is also a quick claim deed state, so that's where they're going to transfer title of ownership into your name. Right, but back to what you had mentioned, it totally depends right out of the gate. When I'm getting to first establish a relationship with my clients, super important that we understand what their goals and objectives are, right? Not everybody is the same and not everybody has the same type of budget to work with, right? So depending on what they're looking to do, for instance, are you an investor that's only looking to accrue interest? If you are looking to acquire property, to elaborate on that further, are you looking for a wholesale opportunity, a fix and flip scenario, a turnkey property? Are you looking for a property to turn around and develop on, right? So everybody has a different goal and it just depends on what they're looking to do. That's what we try hard to cater to and educate them of where they need to look to be able to execute that investment.
That's awesome. Well, Erin, thank you so much. You gave everybody a lot to chew on, so to speak, right? And everybody, for those of you that maybe didn't understand some of the terms, this is old hat for Erin and I. So if you didn't understand a term, you're brand new to this, if you don't have a coach set up yet and you want to work with Erin, be sure to reach out to us immediately so we can get you on the right path so you'll understand all these things. I know it seems like a lot in the beginning, but believe me, she'll break it down. She'll make it as simple as can possibly be. Make sure you do your due diligence up front and always start with the end in mind. Know what your eventual goal is going to be so they can point you in the right direction. So thanks again for being here with me again, Erin. I look forward to doing more of these with you, and I appreciate the wealth of knowledge you're passing on to all of us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Happy investing, everyone.
Thanks, Erin. Have a great day. And everybody else, we'll see you on the next one of these. Thanks for attending.